10 billion years ago, there were no galaxies at that time.
The entire universe, a distance of some 14 billion light years.
Secular astronomers think that light is able to travel 78 billion light years in only 13.7 billion years.
All these galaxies leapt into existence at God's command.
And here with the pizza moon, we have activity that would reflect what Jesus was saying as he forecast his return and the winding of this age of grace.
What scientists have discovered is that from the very moment of the Big Bang, the universe was fine-tuned with literally an incomprehensible precision and delicacy for the existence of intelligent life.
More and more has been discovered by physicists and cosmologists that give evidence of a universe that's very finely tuned.
The fine-tuning of the initial conditions of the universe is due to either law, chance, or design.
This fine-tuning data seems to be a lot more likely on theism than it would ever be on the competitor, atheism, for example, or chance.
What is fine-tuning? It probably won't surprise you at all to find out that it's not what the average creationist thinks it is. Fine-tuning is a scientific term which applies to physical modeling. It describes a situation where one or more parameters involved in a model must be very precise when the model itself does not offer mechanisms to constrain their values. So-called fine-tuning problems are not problems because they cannot be solved naturally. They are problems because they indicate that the given model is incomplete. This is very rarely mentioned as an objection in debate, and creationist apologists are often left to get away with their dirty tactics. I cannot stress this enough. The existence of fine-tuning in physical models does not indicate that the universe has also been finely tuned. To even use the term fine-tuning when discussing the universe itself, as opposed to discussing scientific theories of cosmology and physics, is perhaps the most insidious form of creation astronomy propaganda I've ever come across. It is, after all, the intentional misapplication, out of context, of a phrase which introduces anthropic bias.
The fine-tuning of the initial conditions of the universe, fine-tuning the universe of the universe of the universe.
A much better term for actually discussing nature would be precision, but bear in mind that every parameter which must be finely tuned in models, for example the cosmological constant or the strength of gravity, is merely a number which our particular models require in order to highlight something that appears to remain constant. Without the models that they're tuned for, these constants would have no physical meaning to us, and we do not really know whether they're arbitrary or necessary, or whether they're really separate things at all. They may very well be unified by an underlying structure that we cannot yet describe. The fact that they were arrived at in different fields by different people at different points in history makes it more challenging to achieve unification, because there are disconnects between many of the major theories of modern physics. This is not to say that these theories are inaccurate. Many of them are remarkably powerful within their domains of applicability, but they each explore a limited facet or scale of nature and do not always join up neatly.
If these constants or quantities had been altered by less than a hair's breadth, life would have been impossible, and there would be no life of any sort throughout the entire cosmos. And the question is, how do you best explain this appearance of design?
Now, I could say that expressing surprise at being allowed to exist in a universe in which you are capable of expressing surprise at being allowed to exist is painfully tautological. I could raise the objections from research scientists whose work has revealed that variability of apparently fundamental parameters of nature can still yield stable, potentially life-supporting universes. I could invoke the possibility of our universe being one of many in a multiverse so extensive that the probability of life-supporting universes existing approaches 1. I could explore some of the reasonable extensions to models which can actually solve fine-tuning problems, for example inflation in cosmology or supersymmetry in particle physics. I could even wax hypothetical about completely unrecognizable forms of intelligent life which might evolve in a more hostile or less active universe. Any of these responses could be taken as grounds to dismiss the creationists' fine-tuning argument as readily as its proponents accepted, but I'm a generous guy, and for the rest of this video, I'm not going to use any of them. Indeed, I will even allow creationists their underhand misapplication of the term, because I think there's a more fundamental fallacy at work here. To understand it, we need to talk about probability, in particular when it's useful and when it's not. When it comes to probability, there's nothing creationists love more than big numbers and overstressed analogies.
Now 1 part in 10 to the 40, to get some idea of that.
He comes up with an illustration. He asks us to imagine that dimes are piled up on continents.
1 followed by 1,000 billion zeros, at least.
Let's imagine that we covered, say, the whole of Russia with small coins.
So imagine the entire North American continent covered in dimes.
To the height of the moon.
Way up to the moon.
And then we took 1 billion systems like that.
Paint 1 dime.
And we painted one of the coins
red.
Mix
it into the billions of dimes.
We asked you to blindfold a friend.
But the problem is that objective values do exist, and deep down I think we all know it.
Blindfold a friend and ask him to pick out that 1 red dime.
About 1 chance in 10 to the 40.
10 to the 37th power.
10 to the 40.
10 to the 37th power.
40.
37th.
Until our minds are reeling in incomprehensible numbers.
Here's an analogy for you. Suppose Space Duck shows Bunny an object he's never seen before. Because it's the only one he's seen, it's unique as far as he's concerned, and it's all 1 color. I expect most of you thought of red, but that's another story. On inspecting this object, Bunny's question is, what are the chances of this object being this exact color? Space Duck looks back at him, bewildered. What do you mean? It's the only one you've encountered. How can you ask this question? Well, the color is so finely tuned and precise. This exact collection of wavelengths has produced a convenient result, because red is a color visible to my eyes. Yes, but I'm off to write a book called The Anthropic Cosmological Principle. Space Duck, unsure of what just happened, flaps off to the Whirlpool galaxy to render its unsuspecting victims' compasses useless forevermore. Now for the moral of the story. A probability analysis with a sample size of 1 is meaningless. We have 1 real universe to analyze. If we could be sure of the existence of any number other than 1, we could start to talk about probability. Until then, it's all a bunch of pine cones. Unfortunately, the Anthropic Cosmological Principle was written, not by Bunny, but by John Barrow and Frank Tipler. It contains some wonderful deep mathematics, but is riddled with this fallacy, which I initially termed the false lottery. Because this book is by far the biggest offender, I've decided to rename it the Barrow-Tippler Fallacy in their honor. A written statement of the fallacy can be found in the video description. And to all my creationist viewers, remember that if accused of using this fallacy, be sure to just restate it, preferably with another fallacy. Why not try the appeal to authority?
I would say that it's not quite right to do a statistical analysis of this because we only have 1 sample. We don't have a random data set. The only universe we have is one in which life has propagated, and so it's not quite fair to compare that to the statistics of life not being able to exist in the universe, or a universe not being able to exist, because there are no humans around in such an instance to declare that life hasn't existed.
Yes, this is an objection that one sometimes sees in the literature, but I think for those who understand the fine-tuning argument, it's not difficult to explain the sense of probability and the sample set that one is talking about. In his book, The World Within the World, the Oxford physicist John Barrow gives the following illustration that I find very helpful. He said, make a dot on a piece of paper and let that be the universe. Make it a red dot, and that is our universe. Now, he says, alter slightly some of these constants, like the proton-neutron mass ratio, or the strength of the weak force, or the expansion of the universe, and let that be a new universe. And if it's life permitting, make it a red dot. If it's life prohibiting, make it a blue dot. And then alter them again and make another dot, and then alter it again and another dot. And you just keep doing this, altering these constants slightly, and until your paper is filled with universes or filled with dots. And what you discover is that you have a sea of blue with just a few pinpoints of red here or there. And that's the sense in which one means that it is enormously and incomprehensibly improbable that the universe should be life-permitting.
Clear skies and good debunking. Wait, I just thought of something. Can't an omnipotent God create an infinite variety of life-supporting universes by definition? That would make the odds of us being here pretty good if theism is valid, and isn't that a tautology? And it completely undermines the assertion that an improbable universe is evidence for supernatural creation. Hang on just a minute.
Perché sono un peccatore. Gesù allora lo rassicura: non temere. D'ora in poi sarai pescatore d'uomini. Ed egli, lasciato tutto, lo segue.